My son said I would get nothing from my ex-wife's $37 million will. He sat there, smug, during what we thought was the will reading, but then the lawyer laughed and read one sentence that turned his face white. My son panicked because of one simple sentence, and what I discovered next changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Before we continue, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me your impressions in the comments. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. I was drinking coffee from a chipped mug when the phone rang. Mr. Robert, this is Thomas Bradley from Bradley & Associates. I'm calling regarding your ex-wife, Helena Mitchell. I'm afraid she passed away yesterday evening. Helena. After 30 years of marriage and 5 years of bitter silence since our divorce, she was gone. The man continued talking about arrangements and legal matters, but I was thinking about our last courtroom meeting, when she took everything. The house we'd designed together. My business. Even our dog Max. I need to inform you that Mrs. Mitchell left a will, a substantial estate, approximately $37 million. There will be a private family reading this Friday at 2 p.m. Your presence has been specifically requested. $37 million. I knew Helena had done well, but not that well. Why am I being invited? She made it clear during the divorce that she never wanted to see me again. Your name appears prominently in her final wishes. After hanging up, I stared at my tiny studio apartment. 1 bedroom, a closet kitchen, and a living room barely big enough for a couch. This was my life after Helena's lawyers painted me as a gambling addict and cheater. Neither was true, but truth doesn't matter when you can't afford the right lawyers. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. My son. Heard about Mom. Don't even think about showing up Friday. You won't get a single penny. She made sure of that. Marcus. 35 years old, and still holding grudges. After the divorce, he'd chosen Helena's side without hesitation. Based on the court evidence, I looked like the villain, even if most of it had felt fabricated, too convenient. But something bothered me. Why would Helena mention me if she hated me? During our final court appearance, she'd looked at me with pure disgust. How much poison do you swallow to look at someone like that? I pulled out an old shoebox filled with photographs and letters from our marriage. At the bottom was a letter Helena had written early on. Robert, you are my anchor in this crazy world. Whatever storms come, we can weather them together. That hadn't aged well. My phone rang again. Thomas Bradley. Mr. Robert, there's something about your ex-wife's final arrangements that your son doesn't know. Something she wanted kept private until after her death. We need to meet before Friday's reading. What kind of something? Not over the phone, but Helena was very specific about certain conditions. Are you available tomorrow morning? After hanging up, I reread Helena's old letter. At the bottom was a line I'd forgotten. Sometimes we have to do things that look wrong from the outside to make things right in the end. At the time, I'd thought she meant quitting her career to support my business. Now I wondered if it meant something darker. I poured myself one careful drink. I'd learned caution with alcohol after Helena's lawyers constructed a drinking problem from having a beer after work and getting drunk at my brother's wedding. When you're already cast as the villain, every beer becomes evidence. The apartment felt suffocating. I stepped onto my small balcony overlooking a parking lot. Not the view from our old house with Helena's garden and my workshop. She'd gotten all of that. The judge decided I didn't deserve the home I'd worked 16-hour days to afford. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. And don't try to contest anything. Mom's lawyers made sure the will is ironclad. You had your chance to be a decent husband and father. You blew it spectacularly." That text was surgical in its cruelty. Marcus knew I'd spent 5 years questioning if I really was the failure everyone said I was. But something was nagging at me. Helena's phrase about doing things that look wrong, and now this mysterious meeting. Maybe I was grasping at straws, but after 5 years in this shoebox, even straws looked like lifelines. I found Helena's contact in my old phone, still there after all these years. I'd never called it, but never deleted it either, just in case. Now she was gone, and all those conversations we'd never have were gone too. The lawyer said Helena was very specific about certain conditions. What did that mean? Why a private meeting before the official reading? I looked around my apartment one more time. At the fold-out couch that served as my bed. At the frozen dinner on the counter. At the window facing a brick wall. This was what my life had become. Maybe it was time to find out if there was another truth hiding underneath the first one. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Thomas Bradley. Maybe he'd tell me Helena left me $1 and a note explaining why I deserved nothing more. But maybe there was more to this story, because the people who hurt you most usually have the most complicated reasons for doing it. And Helena Mitchell had always been complicated. My phone rang one more time. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mr. Robert?" The voice was elderly, familiar. "This is Elena Vasquez. I worked for you and Mrs. Helena for 15 years. Elena, our housekeeper, until Helena suddenly fired her before the divorce. "Elena, how did you get my number?" "Mrs. Helena gave it to me 3 weeks before she died. She made me promise to call you after she passed, but only if you started asking questions about what really happened." My heart pounded. "What kind of questions?" "The kind you're probably asking yourself right now. Mr. Robert, I have something she wanted me to give you, but you're going to need a box." The next morning, aggressive pounding on my door announced Marcus's arrival. I opened it to find my son with his wife, Jennifer, both dressed for battle. Marcus wore an expensive suit, but looked disheveled. Jennifer stood behind him with her usual disgusted expression around me. "We need to talk," Marcus said, pushing past me. Jennifer followed, her heels clicking on my cheap linoleum. God, this place is so depressing. "One day at a time," I said. Marcus turned to face me, tension visible in his shoulders. "I heard you're meeting with Bradley today. Word travels fast." "Cut the crap, Dad. We know why you're going." Jennifer spoke up sharply. "You're trying to contest Mom's will. Forget it. Helena was clear. You get exactly what you deserve. Nothing." "And what makes you so certain?" Marcus sat heavily in my only decent chair. "Justice, Dad. You destroyed our family with your addictions and betrayals. Mom spent her last years rebuilding what you tore down. I never had a gambling problem, Marcus." "Right. That's why we almost lost the house twice. We almost lost the house because your mother's lawyers convinced the judge I was unfit, not because of debts that didn't exist. The credit card bills said otherwise." I stared at him. "What credit card bills?" Jennifer and Marcus exchanged a quick look. She cleared her throat. "The ones from the casino? The online poker sites." "I never played online poker. The only time I went to a casino was Uncle Mike's birthday, where I lost $40 and complained about it." "Dad, stop. We have documentation. Mom's investigators found everything." "What investigators?" Another look between them. Marcus answered, "When Mom suspected you were cheating, she hired a private investigator. That's how we found out about everything else. The cheating accusation. That old wound." I never cheated on your mother. Right. I guess those hotel receipts just appeared in your wallet by magic. I felt like I was drowning. What hotel receipts? Jennifer pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. We didn't come to relitigate history. We came to make sure you understand. Helena left everything to Marcus. The house, the business, the investments. Everything except you, Marcus added with satisfaction. You get nothing. I sat down hard. These accusations, these pieces of evidence they kept mentioning, none made sense. I'd never seen unexplainable hotel receipts, never gambled online, never cheated. But according to them, there was documentation of all of it. Marcus, where did this evidence come from? From Mom's investigation, and from us helping her. Us? Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. Marcus and I helped Helena gather information. We cared about her. What kind of information? Financial records, phone bills, credit card statements, travel receipts, online activity reports. And you found evidence of my supposed crimes? We found enough to convince a judge. I looked at my son. When had he become so cold, so certain of my guilt? You're telling me you helped build a case against your own father? We helped Mom discover the truth about who you really are. The conviction in his voice hit me. Marcus genuinely believed every word. He wasn't lying. He truly thought I was this monster. How had my son? I went to my kitchen and pulled out bank statements from before the divorce. These are our financial records. Show me one casino transaction, one poker payment. Marcus didn't look. Those aren't complete records. There are bank statements, Marcus, from the account your mother and I shared. The gambling was from different accounts. What different accounts? We had one checking and one savings account. Silence stretched between us. Jennifer stood. We should go. Marcus stood too, looking at me strangely. Dad, whatever Bradley tells you tomorrow, it won't change anything. Marcus, what if everything you think you know about me is wrong? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, it's not wrong. After they left, I sat in the silence, trying to process what had happened. Marcus and Jennifer had helped Helena gather evidence against me, evidence of crimes I'd never committed. But they seemed absolutely convinced. An hour later, I drove to Elena's modest house. She met me with tears and led me to her kitchen table, where a worn leather journal waited. Mrs. Helena gave this to me 3 weeks before she died, Elena said. She made me promise to give it to you only after she passed, and only if you came asking the right questions. I opened the journal. Helena's handwriting filled every page. The first entry was dated 8 months before her death. March 15th. Can't sleep. What have I done to Robert? Marcus showed me more evidence today. Hotel receipts from downtown. Says he found them in Robert's briefcase. But the dates don't match Robert's work schedule. I flipped through pages, watching Helena's growing suspicions unfold. March 22nd. Hired my own investigator. Not to follow Robert, but to verify Marcus's evidence. April 3rd. Investigator confirmed worst fears. Hotel receipts are forgeries, casino charges made with card. Marcus opened in Robert's name. Everything fake. Elena, did you know about this? Elena nodded sadly. I tried to tell Mrs. Helena, but she wouldn't listen at first. Marcus was very convincing. Another entry. April 15th. Marcus taking $5,000 monthly from my account. Says it's for my own good. When I threatened to stop, he showed me legal papers. Plans to have me declared incompetent. How long did she know the truth? 6 months. She knew for 6 months before she died, but she was terrified of Marcus by then. Elena pulled out a small digital camera. Mrs. Helena started recording their conversations. She showed me the videos. Marcus entered the frame, cold and calculating. "Mom, we need to discuss your spending habits. $5,000 a month? That's not sustainable, given your memory issues." Helena's voice was small. "It's my money, Marcus." His reply was chilling. "Not for long. Dr. Patterson thinks your cognitive decline is accelerating. If you keep making irrational decisions, I'll have to take legal steps." I watched several more videos. In each, Marcus systematically undermined Helena's confidence, questioned her memory, threatened her independence, psychological abuse, methodical and cruel. Helena's final entry: "I can't undo what I did to Robert. Can't give him back 5 years, but I can make sure Marcus doesn't profit from his manipulation. Tomorrow I see Thomas Bradley, going to set things right." Helena squeezed my hand. "Mrs. Helena loved you until the day she died." Marcus twisted that love, but it was always there. As I drove home with Helena's journal, I thought about the boy Marcus used to be, the child afraid of thunderstorms who slept in our bed. When had he been replaced by this stranger who could destroy his parents' lives for money? Tomorrow would be Helena's test. Marcus would expect to inherit everything. Then Thomas Bradley would reveal the truth. But first, Marcus would get one final opportunity to show remorse, to prove some part of the decent person we'd raised still existed. Based on everything I'd learned, I wasn't optimistic. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." I stared at the message, then looked in my rearview mirror. At the last light, the sedan's headlights died. In my mirror, only my own eyes looked back. Some tests, I settled into the worn cushions, noting how the chair seemed to wrap around me like it was designed for difficult conversations. "Mr. Bradley, I'll be honest with you. After yesterday's visit from my son, I'm not sure why I'm here or what to expect. Call me Thomas. And you're here because your ex-wife was a very complicated woman who made some extremely difficult decisions in the final months of her life." He opened a thick file that sat centered on his desk. "Robert, may I ask you something? During your divorce proceedings, did you ever feel like the evidence against you was almost too convenient, too perfectly timed?" I leaned forward. Every piece of it felt wrong, like someone had built a case against a person who wasn't me. Thomas nodded slowly, his fingers drumming against the desk. "Helena came to see me 8 months ago. She was dying, Robert. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. She had maybe 6 months left, and she was carrying a burden that was literally eating her alive." "What kind of burden?" Instead of answering immediately, Thomas reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind lawyers use for depositions. "She asked me to record her full confession. She wanted you to hear it, but only after she was gone. She said she couldn't bear to face you while she was alive, knowing what she'd done." He placed the recorder on the desk between us. The red light blinked once when he pressed play. Helena's voice filled the room. Thinner than I remembered, but unmistakably her. "Robert, if you're hearing this, then I'm dead, and you're finally learning the truth that I was too much of a coward to tell you while I was alive." I gripped the arms of the chair hard enough to leave marks. "I need you to know that you never cheated on me. You never gambled away our money. You never did any of the terrible things we accused you of in court. I know this because I helped create every piece of evidence that destroyed you." The room seemed to tilt sideways. Thomas reached over and paused the recording. "Are you all right? Do you need some water?" "Keep playing it." Helena's voice continued, and now I could hear tears. I was scared, Robert. Scared of growing old. Scared of becoming invisible. Scared that you'd wake up one day and realize you could do better than a 58-year-old woman whose best years were behind her. When Marcus started telling me about your suspicious behavior, I wanted to believe him because it gave me a reason to act first, to leave you before you could leave me. Marcus started telling her? I interrupted. What does that mean? Thomas held up a finger. Keep listening. It gets worse. But Marcus wasn't protecting me, Robert. He was protecting himself. You see, our son had been stealing from us for over 3 years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He'd learned to forge signatures, move money between accounts, even open credit cards using your identity. When you started asking questions about some irregular transactions, Marcus panicked. I couldn't breathe. The walls of the office seemed to be closing in. He convinced me that your questions were just you trying to cover up your own crimes. He showed me evidence of your gambling. Hotel receipts he claimed he'd found in your wallet. Credit card statements showing casino charges. Online poker transactions. I was so terrified of being abandoned and so desperate to believe I was the victim, instead of the fool that I didn't question any of it. Thomas stopped the recording again. How are you processing this? My son, I whispered. My own son was stealing from us and then framed me for it. The hotel receipts, the casino charges, all fabricated. Helena figured it out about 6 months before she died. Marcus had been using your identity to cover his own gambling debts. The addiction was real, Robert. But it wasn't yours. It was his. Thomas pulled out another file, this one even thicker. Helena spent her final months documenting everything. Every forged signature, every false transaction, every lie Marcus told. She hired investigators to verify what had really happened. The recording resumed. By the time I realized what Marcus had done, what we had done to you, the divorce was final. You'd lost everything, and I was too proud and too ashamed to admit the truth. I told myself you were better off without us, without me. But that was just another lie I used to avoid facing what I'd become. How much? I asked Thomas. How much did he steal? Over the course of 3 years, approximately $215,000. 200,000. The number felt surreal. And I lost a house worth $800,000 defending myself against crimes I didn't commit. Robert, there's more. Helena didn't just discover the theft. Photos, bank stamps, draft petitions. 2 doctors. Never met her. I felt sick. He was going to steal from her, too. He already was. Helena discovered that Marcus had been taking $5,000 cash from her account every month for 2 years. When she confronted him about it, he told her it was for her own good, that she was becoming forgetful and needed someone to manage her finances. Thomas opened the second file and showed me bank statements. Withdrawal after withdrawal, always the same amount, always in cash. When Helena threatened to cut him off, Marcus told her he'd have her committed. He had everything prepared. Doctors who would testify she was suffering from dementia, witnesses who would say she'd become paranoid and delusional. Jesus Christ. Helena realized that if she died naturally, Marcus would inherit everything and you'd never know the truth. So she made a decision. A very Helena-like decision. What kind of decision? Thomas smiled for the first time since I'd arrived, but it wasn't a happy smile. She decided to set a trap. She created 2 wills, Robert. The one that will be discussed at tomorrow's family meeting is fake. A decoy designed to give Marcus one final chance to show some basic human decency. I stared at him. 2 wills? The real will leaves everything to you. Every penny of the $37 million. Marcus gets exactly $1 and a letter explaining why. But why the charade? Why not just tell the truth and be done with it? Thomas leaned back in his chair. Because Helena wanted to give Marcus one last opportunity to prove he'd changed. to show some remorse, some compassion, some sign that the boy you raised still existed somewhere inside the man he'd become. Tomorrow's meeting is his test. And if he fails, then he gets his dollar, his letter, and a very clear understanding of exactly what his greed and cruelty cost him. I sat there trying to absorb what I'd just learned. My son had systematically destroyed my life to cover up his own crimes. My ex-wife had helped him do it out of fear and pride, then spent her dying months trying to make it right. And now, from beyond the grave, she was giving Marcus one final chance at redemption. Thomas, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think she really loved me, even after everything that happened? He was quiet for a moment, then reached into the file one more time. He pulled out a sealed envelope with my name written across it in Helena's careful handwriting. She asked me to give you this after you heard the recording. She said it would answer any questions about her feelings. I took the letter, but didn't open it. Not yet. One more thing, Robert. Tomorrow's meeting isn't a legal proceeding. It's a private family gathering, as specified in Helena's final instructions. The real will won't be filed for probate until next week. Tomorrow is just about giving Marcus his choice. As I left Thomas's office, I thought about the boy Marcus used to be. The kid who'd cried when he accidentally stepped on a caterpillar. Who'd saved his allowance for 2 months to buy me a Father's Day present. Who'd called me his hero, and meant it. Tomorrow, I'd find out if any part of that boy still existed, or if the man he'd become had completely erased every trace of the child I'd loved, and raised, and believed in. Helena always had been good at tests. Even dying, she'd found a way to reveal people's true character. Some lessons, apparently, are worth designing from the grave. That evening, I drove across town to Elena's modest house, a small bungalow in a neighborhood that had seen better decades, but still maintained its dignity. She met me at the door with tears already flowing, and led me straight to her kitchen table, where a worn leather journal sat waiting like evidence. I opened the journal carefully. Helena's handwriting filled every page in neat, precise lines. The first entry was dated 8 months before her death. March 15th. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't look at myself in mirrors anymore. What have I done to Robert? Marcus showed me more evidence today. Credit card statements showing charges at the Riverside Hotel downtown. He said he found them in Robert's briefcase while helping him organize papers. But something feels wrong. The dates don't match Robert's work schedule. He was in Detroit those days for the Morrison account. I flipped through more pages, watching Helena's growing suspicions unfold in real time. Entry after entry documented her increasing doubts about the evidence Marcus had been providing. Another entry, this one more frantic. April 3rd. The investigator confirmed my worst fears. The hotel receipts are sophisticated forgeries. The casino charges were made with a credit card Marcus opened in Robert's name using documents he'd stolen. The online gambling accounts were created from Marcus's computer using Robert's social security number. Everything. All of it. Fake. I felt nauseous reading it. How long did she know the truth? 6 months, Elena said quietly. She knew for 6 months before she died. But she was terrified of Marcus by then, Mr. Robert. More terrified than I'd ever seen her. Terrified of her own son? Elena pulled out another document, a bank statement I recognized from Helena's personal account. It showed monthly withdrawals, always in cash, always for $5,000. Look at the dates, Mr. Robert. I studied the statement. The withdrawals had started 2 years before Helena's death, and continued right up until the month she died. He was taking money from her regularly. Not taking, demanding, He told her it was for her own good, that she was becoming forgetful and needed someone to manage her finances. But when she tried to say no, Elena's voice trailed off. Elena walked to a kitchen drawer and pulled out a small digital camera. Mrs. Helena started recording their conversations. She wanted proof of what he was really like when no one else was watching. I found Helena's final journal entry, dated just days before her death. I can't undo what I did to Robert. I can't give him back the 5 years he lost, the reputation I helped destroy, the pain I caused by believing lies about a good man. But I can make sure Marcus doesn't profit from his manipulation. I can ensure the truth comes out, even if I'm too much of a coward to tell it while I'm alive. Tomorrow, I'm seeing Thomas Bradley. I'm going to set things right the only way I know how. Elena reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Mr. Robert, Mrs. Helena loved you until the day she died. Even when she was angry and scared and confused, she loved you. Marcus twisted that love into something ugly, but it was always there underneath. I closed the journal and sat back in Elena's kitchen chair, trying to process everything I'd learned. Marcus hadn't just stolen money and framed me for crimes I didn't commit. He'd spent years psychologically torturing his own mother, isolating her from support, and preparing to steal her entire estate through legal manipulation. She wanted to tell you the truth then, Elena continued. But Marcus had convinced her that you hated her, that you'd never forgive her, that calling would only make things worse for everyone. As I drove home with Helena's journal on the passenger seat, I thought about the boy Marcus used to be, the child who'd been afraid of thunderstorms and slept in our bed during bad weather, the teenager who'd worked weekends at my shop, learning to use tools and fix engines and solve problems with his hands instead of manipulation. When had that boy disappeared? When had he been replaced by this stranger who could look his own parents in the eye and systematically destroy their lives for money? Tomorrow would be the test Helena had designed from her deathbed. Marcus would walk into that meeting expecting to inherit everything. He'd probably celebrate privately, maybe even publicly. And then Thomas Bradley would reveal the truth about his mother's real wishes. But first, Marcus would get one final opportunity to show remorse, to demonstrate growth, to prove that some part of the decent Friday afternoon, I arrived early at Bradley and Associates, wearing my only decent suit. The building felt different now, knowing someone had broken in the night before. Security cameras tracked my movement through the lobby. Thomas met me at the elevator. Robert, before we go up, you should know Marcus called this morning. He's bringing his lawyer. His lawyer? David Steinberg, one of the best estate attorneys in the city. It seems Marcus is taking this more seriously than we expected. The conference room felt like a courtroom. Marcus and Jennifer sat across from me, flanked by a sharp-dressed man who could only be Steinberg. Marcus wore his most expensive suit, and the Rolex I remembered from better times. Jennifer's makeup was flawless, her designer purse positioned like armor. But something was different. Jennifer kept glancing at Marcus with an expression I couldn't read. Doubt, maybe. Or fear. Thomas entered with his files and 2 additional men I didn't recognize. Good afternoon. Building security will sit in for record keeping. This isn't a court proceeding. Steinberg spoke first. Before we begin, I'd like to state for the record that my client contests the validity of any will that doesn't reflect Mrs. Mitchell's clearly expressed intentions. Thomas smiled politely. Noted. Shall we begin? He opened the file. Helena's estate has been valued at $37.2 million. Her wishes, as expressed in the document prepared for today's meeting, are as follows. I, Helena Margaret Mitchell, leave my entire estate to my beloved son, Marcus James Mitchell. Marcus exhaled slowly. Jennifer squeezed his arm, but her smile seemed forced. As for my ex-husband, Robert Mitchell, Thomas continued, I leave him nothing, as his actions demonstrated a character unworthy of consideration. I watched Marcus's face. Satisfaction showed underneath his attempt at solemnity. This was exactly what he'd orchestrated. Helena requested I give Marcus an opportunity to share any thoughts before concluding. Marcus stood, straightening his suit. I want Dad to know that Mom's decision validates everything I've believed. You were a terrible husband who destroyed our family. You sitting there in that old suit, living in poverty, it's exactly what you deserve. Jennifer's hand dropped from his arm. She was staring at him with something approaching horror. For years, people told me I should forgive you, Marcus continued. But Mom was right to cut you out completely. You're a parasite who contributed nothing while taking everything. Jennifer stood suddenly. Marcus, stop. What? Just stop. Her voice was shaking. This isn't who you are. Sit down, Jennifer. No. She looked around the room, then back at Marcus. I can't do this anymore. Steinberg leaned over and whispered something to Marcus, who nodded and sat down. Thomas cleared his throat. Actually, Mr. Marcus Mitchell, before we finalize anything, there's something else your mother wanted me to share. He pulled out another document. This is a letter Helena wrote specifically for you. Marcus took the letter, but as he read, his expression changed. Confusion, then alarm, then panic. What does it say? Jennifer asked. Marcus's hands shook. It says there are 2 wills. Thomas smiled for the first time since I'd met him. Correct. What I just read was a test, Marcus. Your mother wanted to see how you'd react to inheriting everything. Color drained from Marcus's face. What do you mean? What I just read isn't worth the paper it's printed on. The real will is right here. Thomas pulled out another document. And the contents are quite different. Jennifer was backing toward the door. Marcus, I'm leaving. Don't you dare! I said I'm leaving. This whole thing, what you've become, I can't be part of it anymore. She grabbed her purse and walked out. Marcus stared after her, stunned. Thomas began reading from the real will. I, Helena Margaret Mitchell, having discovered the truth about my son's theft and manipulation, do hereby leave my entire estate to my ex-husband, Robert Mitchell. To my son Marcus, I leave $1 and this message. You stole my money. You stole my peace of mind. And you stole 5 years of happiness from a good man. You are no longer my son. Absolute silence. Marcus stared like the document might burst into flames. Marcus stood so fast his chair fell over. I'll contest this. I'll fight it. With what money? And what evidence? Helena documented everything. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every threat. Thomas handed me keys. These are to Helena's house, Robert. Your house now. As I stood to leave, Marcus grabbed my arm desperately. Dad, wait. Maybe we can work something out. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face. Marcus, you just spent 10 minutes telling me I'm worthless. The only thing that's changed is you found out I have money instead of you. I pulled free. That tells me everything I need to know. Walking out, I could hear Marcus arguing frantically with Steinberg about appeals and technicalities. But I wasn't listening anymore. After 5 years of wondering if I really was the monster they'd painted, I finally had my answer. But my son had become something I didn't recognize. something I wasn't sure could ever be fixed. Helena had given him one last chance to prove he'd changed. Instead, he'd proven exactly the opposite. That evening, I sat in my old living room for the first time in 5 years. Helena had changed things. New furniture, different paint, updated fixtures. But the bones were the same. The house we'd built together. Dream by dream. Helena's final letter sat in my jacket pocket. I'd been carrying it since Thomas gave it to me, but hadn't been ready to read her last words. Now, sitting in the chair where we used to watch television together, I finally opened the envelope. "My dearest Robert," it began, "if you're reading this, then you know the truth about our divorce, about Marcus, about everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was unforgivable." Her handwriting was shakier than I remembered, weakened by illness. "I need you to understand why I believed Marcus's lies. It wasn't because the evidence was convincing, though he put considerable effort into fabricating it. It was because I wanted to believe it. I was 58 years old, terrified you'd wake up and realize you could do better than a middle-aged woman whose best years were behind her. I had to stop reading. Helena had always been beautiful to me, even at 58, even at 63 when she died. When Marcus started showing me evidence of your affairs, it gave me permission to act first, to leave you before you could leave me. It was cowardly and selfish, but fear makes people do terrible things." The letter detailed Helena's gradual realization that something was wrong with Marcus's evidence, how she'd hired investigators, how she'd discovered the truth about the gambling debts, forged credit cards, fabricated hotel receipts. The worst part was understanding how expertly Marcus had manipulated my deepest insecurities. He knew exactly which buttons to push, which fears to exploit. Our son weaponized my love for him against my love for you. She wrote about the months after our divorce, how she'd expected to feel vindicated, but instead felt empty and confused. "I called you once, about 2 years after the divorce. I dialed your number and listened to it ring, but hung up before you answered. I was afraid you'd hang up on me. I knew I deserved it." I remembered that call, the phone ringing and stopping. I'd wondered about it for weeks. I spent my last 8 months documenting Marcus's crimes, not for legal purposes, though that evidence exists. I did it because I needed to understand how I'd been so completely fooled by my own child. The handwriting became more labored as it progressed. She'd been dying when she wrote this, fighting cancer while trying to make sense of our family's wreckage. "Robert, I robbed you of 5 years of happiness. 5 years when we could have been growing old together, traveling, spoiling grandchildren, arguing about television. 5 years of Sunday mornings and ordinary evenings, and all the small moments that make up a real life." I had to walk to the window. Those 5 years felt like a lifetime. All the loneliness, self-doubt, nights lying awake, wondering if I really was the failure everyone said I was. I know you'll be angry, and you should be. But I hope someday you'll pity me, because I threw away 30 years of genuine love based on lies told by a son who saw me as nothing more than a source of money. She wrote about creating 2 wills, about wanting to give Marcus one final opportunity to show growth. If you're reading this, then Marcus failed his test. He showed you exactly who he's become. I'm sorry for that, Robert. Sorry that our beautiful, sweet little boy grew up to be someone neither of us would recognize. The letter's final paragraphs focused on forgiveness. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you'll consider forgiving Marcus eventually. Not for his sake, but for yours. Carrying hatred is like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die. She ended with, I loved you for 30 years, Robert. I loved you during our marriage, during our divorce, and as I wrote this letter. That love was the most real thing in my life, even when I was too broken to honor it. You deserved so much better. You deserved honesty, and I was too much of a coward to give it to you while alive. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm so incredibly sorry. All my love, always, Helena. I sat holding her letter as darkness fell. Through the window, I could see the garden she'd maintained so carefully. Even in winter dormancy, it was beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dad, please call me. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. An hour later, I know you're angry, but I'm still your son. I deleted that too, a third message before midnight. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I stared at that message for a long time. Marcus was sorry. But sorry for what? Sorry he'd been caught? Sorry he'd lost his inheritance? Or actually sorry for the years of theft and lies and abuse? Helena had been right about one thing. Some questions don't have easy answers, and some wounds require more than words to heal. But for the first time in 5 years, I fell asleep in my own bed, in my own house, knowing the complete truth about who I was and who I'd always been. My phone rang at 3 a.m. I almost didn't answer the unknown number. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and regret. I found Marcus in a private room, his wrists bandaged, his face pale against white sheets. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by a hospital gown that made him look younger, more vulnerable. Dad. His voice was barely a whisper. I sat in the chair beside his bed. Marcus, I didn't think you'd come. You're my son. Of course I came. He started crying then, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so fucking sorry for everything. I handed him tissues and waited. Sometimes the most important conversations require silence first. I've been lying to myself for so long, he said finally. Telling myself you deserved what happened, that I was protecting Mom, that I was the good guy. But when I heard that will read today, when I saw who I really was, I couldn't live with it. But you are living with it. You're here. Jennifer left me, really left me. She said she couldn't be married to someone who could destroy his own father for money. He wiped his nose. She was right. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had the boy who used to fall asleep in my lap during movies turned into this stranger? Marcus, tell me how it started. The stealing, the lies, help me understand. He was quiet for a long time. It started in college. I had gambling debts, and I took money from your account to cover them. Just once, I told myself. But then I needed more, and more. And when you started asking questions about the finances, you panicked. I panicked. I created the fake casino charges, the hotel receipts, everything. I convinced myself you were probably doing those things anyway, so what was the harm in a little evidence? Then when Mom started believing it, he trailed off. You saw an opportunity. I saw a way out. If you were the villain, then I was the victim. If you were the cheater and the gambler, then I was just the loyal son protecting his mother. I thought about the boy Marcus used to be, the kid who'd cried when he accidentally stepped on a butterfly. What happened to your conscience? I killed it, piece by piece, lie by lie. Every time I felt guilty, I reminded myself of all the reasons you deserved it. I made myself believe my own bullshit until I couldn't tell the difference anymore. We sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, Chicago glittered in the pre-dawn darkness. The life insurance policy, I said. The one on your mother. Marcus closed his eyes. I never would have hurt her. You have to believe that. I needed the money to cover what I'd stolen. I thought if she died naturally, you'd inherit everything, and no one would ever know. But she found out about everything, and instead of turning me into the police, she created that test. She wanted to give me one last chance to be human. And you failed. I failed spectacularly. He looked at me. Dad, I know I don't deserve it, but I need to ask you something. I thought about Helena's letter, about poison and forgiveness and second chances. Marcus, I've been thinking about that question for months. Here's what I've decided. I forgive you for what you did to me, not because you deserve it, but because carrying hatred is destroying me too. His eyes filled with fresh tears. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It doesn't mean we go back to how things were. It doesn't mean I forget what you're capable of. It means I'm not going to spend my remaining years consumed by anger. I understand. If you want any kind of relationship with me, you're going to have to earn it. Day by day, choice by choice, year by year. It might take the rest of our lives. It might never happen at all. I'd like to try, if you'll let me. 6 months later, I stood in my workshop, hands covered in grease, working on a 1967 Mustang. Same model Marcus and I had restored years ago. Same cherry red with white racing stripes. The workshop was exactly as I'd left it. Helena had preserved everything. My tools hung in designated spots. My workbench still bore the coffee stain from when 10-year-old Marcus knocked over my mug while helping with a carburetor. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands and walked to the front door. Marcus stood on the porch, looking different than the man in the hospital. He'd lost weight, and his clothes were simple jeans and a department store shirt. No expensive accessories. No air of entitlement. Hi, Dad. Marcus, you look better. I feel better. Therapy helps. So does working at the community center. Community service? Volunteer work. I'm teaching financial literacy to families who've been victims of fraud. Seems appropriate. We stood there for a moment, father and son, trying to figure out how to talk to each other. Dad, I have something for you. He pulled out a small box. Inside was my father's watch, the one I'd given him on his 18th birthday. I don't deserve to wear this anymore, he said. Maybe someday I will again, but not yet. I took the watch. It was still beautiful, still keeping perfect time. Maybe someday. There's one more thing. I've been meeting with the families I hurt during the divorce proceedings, the people who lost money because of my lies. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to make some small part of it right. After Marcus left, I returned to the workshop. But instead of working on the Mustang, I sat in my old chair and thought about second chances and the difference between forgiveness and redemption. A year ago, I'd been living in a studio apartment, convinced I was a failure. Now I sat in my own workshop, in my own house, knowing the complete truth about what had happened and why. It wasn't the happy ending I'd imagined when I married Helena 35 years ago. It wasn't the family I'd thought we were building when Marcus was born, but it was honest. It was real. And for the first time in 5 years, it belonged entirely to me. Outside, I could hear neighborhood sounds. Children playing, adults talking over fences, life moving forward, and finding new ways to be beautiful despite everything that tries to break it. I picked up my tools and returned to the Mustang. Some things are worth restoring. Even when they've been damaged beyond recognition, sometimes you can bring them back to life. Sometimes you can make them better than they ever were before. If this story moved you, give it a like and hit subscribe. And if you're ready for the next chapter, just click the box on the left.